Welcome to a new wave of entrepreneurship. I'm Scott Stewart, founder and CEO of Venture for Canada, and your host. The focus of this podcast is to hear from changemakers and Canadian entrepreneurs to learn about how they've developed their entrepreneurial mindset and skills. In season 3, we'll be chatting with CEOs, founders, and successful business leaders about their career journeys. I'm excited to dive into these conversations about how to foster your entrepreneurial mindset and drive. Danièle Henkel is known to be a committed businesswoman who, during 5 years of Dans l'œil du dragon, aired on ICI Radio-Canada Télé, instantly charmed the audience. Now considered an essential media personality, Danièle is highly sought after for various commitments, sponsorships, and events. In 2019, the Honorable Mary Ning, Minister of International Trade and Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion, named Danièle the co-chair of a committee of national experts to find ideas to increase the number of women entrepreneurs in Canada. Additionally, since 2018, Danièle has also been a member of the advisory board of Investissement Québec. Danièle Henkel's great ability to innovate makes her stand out with her resilience, determination, and authenticity. Bienvenue. Bonjour Danièle, comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Ça va très bien, Scott. Merci beaucoup. Je vais bien.
Glad to hear you are doing very well. On this late July morning, you discuss your childhood in Algeria and, well, actually, in many ways, more in North Africa in general, which was very tumultuous. Can you describe and kind of paint at a high level sort of some of the events that went into your childhood, and at an early age, what were some of the things that you had to overcome?
Well, first of all, when you read my bio, the short bio, you said, and I will remind the audience that when you live in a Muslim country and your mother is Jewish and she's not married, so no protection whatsoever. She's a businesswoman and she has a little girl. So what my mother decided to do, because my father passed away before I was born, so she raised me on her own. And she decided, for the reasons are hers, to baptize me Catholic. And so the only thing I knew until the age of 14 is that I was Catholic. So I would go to the church, and at the age of 14, something happened. Something where it was kind of very drastic in my life. Actually, I would say that the woman that I am today probably started that day. Everything that I decided to become and to overcome started that day at the age of 14. My mother was in business partnership with a man. He was Moroccan. And one day she woke up, I went to school, and she found him dead in the premises, in the business. So of course, my mom was arrested, my mom was accused, and my mom was tortured. So for 3 days, I, the little girl of 14 years, was looking for her mom without being able to find her. So that's why I'm mentioning that date. It's because that, like I said, started the entire way for me to see people and life. My mother was always protecting me. She said that I was capable of doing everything, that I was absolutely wonderful. She kept saying those things. And at that moment, I didn't know if I had to be very upset towards my mom or bless her, because she protected me for 14 years. So North Africa for me taught me many things, especially in the relationship field. I discovered that I had probably at that time 2 choices. The choice to become a very bad person because of the rage, because of the injustice that my mother went through, because she was Jewish, because she was a woman, because she had no one to defend her, or to try to use the most important thing to grow and to protect her, education. So I started being interested in many things, many fields. I started observing human beings, the way they were talking, the way they were acting. So with whatever we have, which is we have everything when we want to develop the values, but also the tools that are given to us. I grew up and I became at very early age, the mother of the mother. So the only thing that I said to my mom that day was, I promise you. I didn't even know what that meant at that time. But I had told her that I promised her that no one will ever harm her again. And you know what, Scott? No one ever harmed her again. So my recollection is not just that. I grew up around absolutely wonderful people too. I met friends, I met men and women that helped me to achieve the goals that I needed to achieve. The second very strong event in my life, my mom again decided that she was going to marry me when I was 19. And again, I was facing two choices: to leave, I could, or to stay. Well, I decided that my entire family was my mom. She was everything to me. And I decided that I was going to accept. So I married a friend of my half brother. That was a previous marriage. And I had 4 children. And you know what? When people ask me, it should have been so difficult. It was. That day, that month. But slowly, I learned to respect and to love that man. I don't know. I don't know if by choosing by myself, and I say it because I don't know, life is different, but I don't know if I would have found such a man with such values that never changed me, always wanted to be or left me who I was. Like you have no idea the woman that I was when I was 20, 25, 30. I just wanted to go forward. I had this rage of living, achieving, because I wanted to prove to my mom that she was going to be okay always. So he accepted the fact that I was Catholic and that I was Jewish, and he was Muslim. So when we say about me that I am the unicity throughout the universal, it is true. I was raised as a Catholic, but deep inside I'm Jewish. And I lived with 27 years with a Muslim gentleman. So yeah, life had prepared me to probably many challenges that were ahead of me, and to know how to navigate throughout non-judgment, throughout an open mind and open heart.
Thanks for sharing your story. And it really is incredibly remarkable, Danielle. And one of the things that comes to my mind is that lots of people, trauma is something that many people go through at various points in their life. But there's often kind of 2 paths. That there's some people who go through trauma and it completely destabilizes them for the entire rest of their life. And then there's some people who go through post-traumatic growth. They actually, which is in many ways what you describe, they go through a traumatic experience and they emerge stronger from that experience. When you think of these kind of pivotal moments in your life, why do you think you were so resilient? And what do you think the sort of source of your resilience to overcome all of these obstacles comes from?
When you feel that there is nothing, you're unstoppable. I am, and I was, and I am unstoppable still. because of my children, my grandchildren, my family. So if you talk about resilience, resilience is when you know that life is full of surprises. Sometimes they are what we call good, and sometimes they are what we call bad. But who knows what is bad and what is good? It depends on when you go through it. But the way that I went through those very different trauma, it's because I was capable of seeing always the opportunity through it all. I was. So I don't know. I don't have answers that are scientific. I don't have answers that are the best for everyone. I have the answers for me, the way I feel, the way I felt. Actually, I would even say, Scott, when I am asked this question, honestly, I don't even think about, oh my God, I have to do this, or oh my God, it's so difficult. I just do. I just get up and do it. I stand and I say, let's go. If I breathe and if I am healthy, and if I know I can do it, I don't think about, oh, it's difficult, it's complicated, it's too far, it's too this. I do not think like that. I look at what I have to accomplish and I'm like, okay, let's try.
In terms of your kind of moving forward a little bit in terms of your life and your experience in Algeria, you lived in Algeria in a time of significant political instability, and for listeners, both in the before Danielle would have lived in Algeria, there was the Algerian War of Independence with between France and Algeria, which itself was incredibly traumatic. Basically the equivalent of the Vietnam War for France, and which a lot of people in North America aren't necessarily aware of the level, the depth of the conflict, and the extent to which Algeria was actually, the Pied Noir, and was viewed by the French as not just a colony, but actually a department, like a part of their identity. And then in the sort of post-independence period, there was, throughout the 1980s, significant instability. All of this to say is, during this time, you worked for the U.S. Embassy in Algeria in a time that was very unstable, where United States, it was the Cold War. The United States was playing an aggressive, political game. North Africa and the Arab and Muslim world was an area of significant conflict between the Soviet Union and the United States. So can you just kind of talk a little bit about your decade working in the U.S. Embassy in Algeria? What were some of your lessons learned, and just in general, of any interesting anecdotes or experiences from that time?
Well, first of all, you described so well that period and the political situation at that time. The only place where I should have never been working was the American Embassy at that time. I was married to a high ranking fonctionnaire, government representative, which was my husband. He was actually sous-ministre.
Yeah, under deputy minister.
And when I decided to work for the embassy, everyone, all my friends and my husband warned me not to. That was not a safe place to be at that moment. But of course, at 26 years old, I was already a mother of four. And I decided that I was going to be paid in US, which in Algeria, you didn't have that. It was the local money, that I was going to be extremely well paid. And I needed that money to just grow. So what I learned, so many things. I discovered actually myself over there. I learned what being resourceful meant. I learned to find solutions no matter what. I learned there that the word impossible absolutely means nothing. When you have courage, when you work, and when you use every tool possible, you do find solution. I learned to never give up. I learned to control fear. Fear was an everyday friend when I was working at the US Embassy. We went through many trauma again. The bomb calling was almost every week. And there were some quite interesting events that I had to go through. So it was a great school, Scott. And I learned that when you stick again to your values, when you stand strong, when you are authentic, when you don't lie, everything's being known, everything comes back. You know that life is a circle. Whatever you do here is noticed here and comes back here. That's what I learned. So I had to be very careful with what I say, the way I do things, and how I speak about people. I learned also what confidentiality meant. Whatever you hear, you keep. Don't share it. Don't say it. Doesn't bring any good. So I learned many things. But most of all, I also discovered what I was capable of.
Yeah, the experience would have been fascinating at that time working in the US Embassy. One line that you said that stuck with me is that becoming friends with fear, which I think is important for entrepreneurs, because, and also just, we live in probably one of the most uncertain times for a long time. What advice do you have for people in terms of to lean into that fear and to really become friends with fear?
Fear is an emotion, Scott. It's something that we feel. It's not something that is always real, can be real, but fear is an emotion that we feel before something. So it's a feeling that you get somewhere. It could be here, it could be in your throat, it could be anywhere. And the idea is like, it's just a signal of something that, you know, I wrote a book called The Intuition. So it's your intuition that is telling you something is not right, or maybe it's your perception. So of course, fear, I say it is my best friend, because fear has helped me to actually even save my life in certain times. But fear became my friend when I recognize fear, meaning I accept the fact that as a human being, fear is part of my life, is part of everyday's life. There are major fear and smaller ones. But when you look at them and you ask the question, why do I feel this way? You stop. You either run for your life because this is what you need to do, or you stop and you just observe what's going on around. Take the time to stop and know or try to understand, why do you have this feeling? Why your heart is beating faster? Why? Sometimes you will see something that you need to act, and some other times it's just a way to say, wait a minute, I haven't seen clearly. I need to go back and do my homework again. Fear is always a trigger to do something better. It's a friend. It's not an enemy. Not for me. It's my best friend, actually. And you know what? What I learned too is that fear is going to be with us our entire life. When we're born, we cry as a baby. It's the fear of coming into life. And when we're ready to go, fear of the unknown again. So I made fear my friend, and I speak to her every day. And I thank her sometimes, and sometimes I tell her to go to sleep because it's not the right time. So my advice is, try to know, or actually know, really know, that as a human being, you are in power. You are the master of any decision you can make. And fear is absolutely normal.
I agreed, and it's better. I think a lot of the times people deal with fear or anxiety by trying to run from it or to hide from it, but that just makes that it makes the anxiety become stronger. So it's actually more about becoming friends with it and saying, yeah, it exists, and labeling it. I think that's really helpful advice.
It gives you the will to go further and to understand where that fear comes from. This is what I meant. This is what I mean. It's go further, ask questions, stop and question. Why do I feel this way? What's going on? Instead of being swallowed by the fear. So you're still the one deciding if you want to go and find out why you feel that way. What can you ask for help? Can you ask for something? Can you read? Can you do something? Yes, you can, because you're the only one that can do something. Fear is an emotion.
On the topic of fear and taking risks, in 1990, you made the decision to immigrate with your 4 children and mother to Quebec, in Canada, which, you know, at that point, with 4 relatively young kids, and moving halfway around the world to escape kind of political turmoil, to come to Canada, it would have been a huge risk and a huge shift. So can you walk us through a little bit about your first kind of few years in Canada? What was it like to acclimate to well, also just the climate going, I mentioned, from North Africa to the Quebec winters, I'm sure was not easy. And you also were living in, when you first immigrated to Quebec, it was probably arguably one of the most intense periods of turmoil in Quebec's history. The referendum in 1995, and the years up until the referendum were probably some of the periods of most intense turmoil in Quebec's history. I mean, there are other points, but that was a very intense couple of years. So can you kind of talk through a little bit, like sort of paint a picture of what were your first few years in Quebec like, and what are some of the ways you can have adapted to life within a new country?
When I decided to immigrate to Canada and to stay in Quebec, it's first and foremost, it was because of the French language. My family didn't speak English. I was the only one because I was working at the embassy. So I thought, okay, it's a small province, everybody speaks French, at least the cultural shock will be minimized. Second, I thought that with everything that I had accomplished and that I was named the Foreign Service National of the Year worldwide in 1989 for all the achievement that I had made during my 10 years with the embassy, I thought that it would be easy for me to find a job. And I thought that this was the place where everything is possible. I could not be so wrong. Really. You know, when I hear people saying, you know, as an immigrant, it's because of the color of my skin, or because I don't have contacts or networking, or because I don't have the money, I smile, because my name is Danielle. My skin is white. I am a woman. I had a curriculum vitae that was quite impressive. I was making a lot of money, and I thought that will probably help me to find a good job, a good position, good salary, and being recognized for whatever I can bring and share. I had to work as a secretary. I was making almost $100,000 US in 1990. So in my naivete, you know, I was naive in front of my first employer. I asked genuinely, and I said, do you pay every week or every 2 weeks? Because my brain couldn't add the fact that I was going to be paid $17,000 per year, not every week. And the gentleman looked at me and said, in here we pay every 2 weeks, and this is a yearly basis. Never to say that I had to learn again, to start all over again.
Yeah, the experience of immigrating to another country is in itself just such an entrepreneurial like decision to move halfway around the world, and just the challenges that immigrants go through. I think people who've never immigrated, they often significantly underappreciate the sacrifices and the significant obstacles. And I've seen it with Venture for Canada in our work, is just how hard it is for immigrants to Canada. Even to your point, immigrants who are very highly qualified and skilled, to have their experiences respected initially by employers. And it's really hard to just get in the door. And those first few years are incredibly tough. So I appreciate you sharing kind of your experiences. So kind of shifting up a few years, in 1997, you founded Danièle Henkel Entreprises. So you kind of got acclimated to Canada, got settled. Can you walk through a little bit, how did Danièle Henkel Enterprises first get started? What was the, walk through kind of how you built the company? What was the initial idea? How did you get initial capital to get going? Paint a picture, kind of what were the first couple of years like of Danièle Henkel Enterprises?
I was really struggling. I was trying to make things happen, and I was working in a company, actually an American company, where I became the director of sales. I was achieving so much that one day I'm working and I needed to do a picture for my passport. And when I went and I got the picture, that was like, I looked at that person and I didn't know who she was. She looked like she just came out of jail. That's how bad it was at the time where I was working 20 hours on 24. And that's where I decided that, why am I doing all this? Why don't I try to do it for myself? So I called my boss and I decided that I was going to quit. She flew from Vancouver. We met, I always remember that meeting, at the airport, because she had to go back. She said, Danièle, what can I do to keep you? And I said, nothing, absolutely nothing. And thank you. Thank you for everything, but I can't. It's now my health, my mental health, my health, and myself and my family. I need to do something else. I need to stop. So that moment, I decided that I was going to find a way to do something else. So I didn't know what it was, Scott. I just wanted to be at home and sit down for a few minutes. At that moment, I started thinking of, what if I take courses? What if I go in real estate? What if, and nothing was, then I got into it at that, I don't know if it was 1 week later or what, I got in the shower. And I was under the shower and I was scrubbing and I was crying and scrubbing. And then I what am I doing? Wow, but this is the way I felt. The way it's like rejuvenating. You know, when you have that sparkle, maybe I can create the glove. Maybe I could share this absolutely phenomenal way of feeling, and how important it is for the skin to be exfoliated. So I started writing my business plan. I was so passionate, so stimulated. I was sure that with that idea, with the fact that it works, I was going to go to the bank and everything will be easy. So I went to the first bank and I started talking about my passion, and I showed and I had the numbers and how much we could sell them and how much money we could make. And I went from refusal to refusal to refusal. Of course, the only thing I had was a home that was already mortgaged. My husband didn't have really a job. I didn't have a job. So they told me to go back and do my homework. So I started begging certain people to help me to have just a few products. And I started going and knocking at door to spas, explaining how this product is absolutely phenomenal. People were laughing at me, but it brought to the fact that even though with no money, every day I had set a number where I needed to sell in order to come back at home and be able to put food on the table, pay my mortgage. Those were the basics. So I could leave home after taking care of mom, go on the road, door to door, coming back and making sure that I will get back with at least $200 per day.
I also think if there's one sort of theme through a lot of the different stories you've talked about is how life is a struggle. And in many ways, it's about embracing that struggle, and that different people go through different struggles at different points. But it is something that is, don't run from it. In many ways, like embrace the struggle that life brings. And also to another point is that it's your community, it's your family that will help you get through these times that inevitably come up at any moment. You know, from when you were 14 and you had no idea, you woke up that morning, you had no idea to know that your mother was going to be tortured and just disappear. And at other points in your life, the political instability in Algeria and having to move to Canada, you didn't necessarily, that was out of your control. There's lots of uncontrollables, but what you can control is how you react.
Absolutely, so true. We can control, as I said, what we think, what we say, and how we do things. That's the only thing that we can control. The rest, we just go with the flow. We have to go through things. And actually, again and again, I keep saying, the woman I am today, and I'm so proud to be who I am. I look at myself every morning and I'm proud of what I have done, what I'm doing, who I am for my family, because this is the most important thing for me. Them first, and the rest, of course. But for me, they have become businesswomen, and again, they are taking over the businesses. But I was a model to them, but they have their own identity. They are strong too. They are so good. My blessing, it's a blessing, Scott. I am so proud of my daughters and my son. It's the most beautiful thing that life has given to me. So you remember when I said I was forced to marry? 4 children out of that all of them, not one, not two, the 4 of them joined me in my dream, in my company, and helped me to build it. And they've always been respectful towards me. They've always shared their ideas. They taught me how to let go. They taught me how to become a better leader. They taught me how to be a better listener.
What advice do you have to any parents who might be listening on how to raise entrepreneurial children? And kind of relatedly, what advice do you have for people running family businesses? So businesses where multiple family members are working all within one firm.
One of the things that I discovered, because I am very often asked to advise, I'm a strategic advisor for different companies or CEO. It's to, when we decide that we have to pass on, to our families at one point, we need to know that it does take time. It's not going to happen in an overnight, not in 1 year, not in 2. Maybe it could take 5 to 8 years to really transfer the knowledge, to really prepare them and prepare us for this kind of handing out. One of the most drastic things that could happen where it doesn't work, it's because of the emotions. If I take myself as an example, I'm the founder. I know the sacrifices that I had to put still. Knowing all that, if I was not prepared adequately, if I didn't accept the fact that I had to let go, and furthermore, that I have to let go, not knowing if they will succeed or not. That is the part that I want to talk about. It's because let them be. If you say they are the one and you choose one of them to lead, then you do need to let go. You can be there. You could be their advisor. You could observe, but you cannot involve yourself to take decisions anymore. This is a big mistake we make when we keep going back and trying to make, because then we're going to see they're not going to do the things the same way. This is not the way to do things. They are going to feel that they don't have the power to make the decision. That's where the company is going to suffer. The employees are going to see the differences and feel that the leadership is not complete. So when we decide to leave, let's just make the move. Let them do what they know they should be doing the way they want, at the pace they want. It's no longer yours. And that's why I decided to let go, but to create my own other project. And that's DanièleHenkel.tv.
Which is a great segue to another topic that I'd love to talk about is, can you describe your new enterprise, DanièleHenkel.tv, and some of the current work that you're doing?
One thing that maybe we did not discuss is that along the years, I've always decided that it was important to share in any way possible, share by knowledge, share by stories, by inspiration, by books, by anything, just sharing so you can help someone else, not the world, just someone else. So my passion is entrepreneurship. So I decided to become a voice for entrepreneurs. And what I have noticed even today in 2021, still the same bias are keep going on. Women cannot find financing easily. The fact that you come from another country, depending on your differences, it could be sex, it could be your culture, your generation, your social rank, still bias are around that. So I decided of taking on everything that will show the world how diversity is necessary and how being a complement of women are complement of men, men are complement of women. And if you have a difference, or you come from another country, or you speak a different language, or you look differently, what I need from you is what you can bring on the plate in our society to make it a better place. That's what I'm interested in too. And how can I help you to actually share all that?
Everybody is entrepreneurial. Everybody has an entrepreneurial spirit. But unfortunately, access to entrepreneurial opportunity is not equitably shared. And that a lot of people, you look at a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs in Canada or around the world, a lot of them come from quite wealthy backgrounds already. Even Jeff Bezos got a $300,000 loan from his parents to start Amazon. Bill Gates went to like the most prestigious private school in Seattle and had the opportunity. Uniquely, his high school was the only high school in the entire United States in like the 1970s that had like a special computer that he was able to. Obviously, Bill Gates is a very smart person, but he also had access to a huge amount of privileges. And you see this a lot in Quebec. The Desmarais family, obviously the next generation, is very successful, but they also were born into a lot of privileges. So I think your mission of how to empower people who are often underestimated is something that is super important. And to your point, you've been underestimated by many different people, and you've proven them wrong
many times. And still, like I said, it's not everybody knows Danièle Henkel. Not everybody is even interested. And it's okay. It is my duty. It is my duty to make people know about me, but the rest of the world, what we can do, how we can get together, how we together can change things for the best.
It is essential that all Canadians and all people have the ability to succeed and to be entrepreneurial regardless of their background or experiences. So in kind of closing, Danielle, we've covered a really wide range of different topics, but one question we love to ask guests at the end is, what advice would you give to your 22-year-old self?
If you make a decision, if you have confidence and you move forward, and it is not what you thought it could be, it is okay, because it was meant to be like that, because that's the way we learn. So we need to keep reminding ourselves that if we base our decision on our own values and they're strong enough, always trust yourself first, but have humility to learn, to listen, and to be guided by better than you. No matter who you are, no matter how great you can be, always be humble.
Fantastic, Danielle. It has been a pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you over the last year. Danielle is a member also of the Venture Canada Quebec Advisory Council, and Danielle and I I've had the pleasure to get to know Danielle through numerous kind of calls over the last year, and really appreciate her coming and joining the podcast today. We have covered a really wide range of different topics, from Danielle's early childhood experience in Morocco to working in the US Embassy in Algeria, to launching Danièle Henkel Entreprises, going door to door with Tupperware, to the importance of resilience in the face of obstacles, to her most recent work with DanielleHenkel.tv. Danielle has had a remarkable life and is continuing to make significant changes, and adds a ton of value around the world, in Canada and in Quebec. And it's been a true pleasure getting to know Danielle over the last year. Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It was a true pleasure.
Thank you so much, Scott, and bravo to all your listeners. You are an amazing also human being, and you are there to actually make this world, our society, a better one. Thank you for everything you're doing.
That's it for this week's episode of A New Wave of Entrepreneurship. Stay connected with us via our social and our email list. Subscribe to us in your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss our next episode. If you have feedback on today's episode, tweet us at Venture4Canada. That is Venture, the number 4, Canada, or email us at podcast@venture4, that's spelled FOR, Canada.ca. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Stewart, and until next time, stay safe, stay motivated, and stay grateful. A New Wave of Entrepreneurship is produced by Juanita Lee Garcia and Latifa Farah. Editing and mixing also done by Latifa Farah. Erica Ormanston is our editorial assistant. Mark Wallach and Premium Beat own the copyright and publishing rights related to the song used in this podcast. The comments and opinions, recommendations, or suggestions expressed on the podcast by the guests are not liable to Venture for Canada and belong solely to each individual. Any information provided stated by our guests and our host is independent of Venture for Canada. A New Wave of Entrepreneurship is a Venture for Canada brand, and all content is owned by Venture for Canada. If you'd like to use our content, please reach out to us at podcast@venture4, that's spelled FOR, Canada.ca.